everybody. I'm excited that we can present this to you. And we're just going to go through, and like Carrie said, we'll have questions at the end. Okay, for the introduction.
I'm Nicole Murphy, and like Carrie said, I'm the clinical coordinator here at Emarc. Paula and I have been running groups for individuals with disabilities on relationships and sexuality probably around 5 years now. We do different level of ability groups. We also do parent trainings, staff trainings to go along with the groups. What we do with our groups is make the gray areas of the topics of relationships a little bit more concrete for the individuals. We heard different information from different curriculum and kind of created our own curriculum to use when we facilitate the groups. And we're going to go into more of kind of each topic that we go over in more detail. Paula and I both are MSWs. Paula is an LICSW. I'm an LCSW. We both graduated from Simmons. We have a combined over 10 years experience with individuals with developmental disabilities, and we look forward to many more. Okay, the training today, I want you to gain some knowledge and strategies to assist in having these discussions about relationships and sexuality, which can be very difficult with your child, family member, student, any individuals that you work with, and we'll also provide at the end a list of resources and activities to use.
That we'd like to have you think about just as we are presenting this information is kind of what comes to your mind when you think about sexuality and people with developmental disabilities. Have you tried having this conversation with your family member? Was it successful? What was hard? What was easy? Maybe these are some things that we can talk a little bit more at the end, but we will be touching on them throughout the PowerPoint this evening. What are questions or things that we could address again, we'll do that part at the end.
Okay, the importance of having this discussion, even though it is a difficult discussion to have, the thing, sex education versus a sexuality discussion, sex education is usually a short conversation that would often take place at school or a different program, and the sexuality discussion is one that continues over time, that's constant, and the ability to ask questions. So some statistics around regarding abuse. Ultimately, 80% of people with intellectual disabilities will be sexually abused at some point in their life, and 90% of their first sexual experiences with the staff. Those statistics are very alarming, and we hope that with opening this kind of topic discussion that can help reduce, the high level of abuse. Need accurate information. Our family members with developmental disabilities or individuals we work with need a place to acquire accurate information and ask questions about any of the info they may have heard, maybe hearing things from friends, from peers on TV, in music. So we need to be the constant for accurate information for them.
More about just sexuality in general. One of the things that we try to have family members and professionals think about is that this is just another developmental stage, just like learning to walk, learning to talk, all of those things that a lot of the people that we work with may have been delayed with originally, but sexuality is not an area that seems to happen, so that it is important to address it, and it's never too late, but it's also never too early. And this can start with as simple as just making decisions. What do you like for dinner tonight? Do you want salad dressing on your salad or not? what would you like to wear in those decisions that they can make. Because none of us started with making the hardest decisions about who to date and who to be friends with and who not to. So just practicing decision-making throughout any day can really lay a really great foundation for making decisions about relationships and about sexuality issues. And so that can start, again, as early as 3 or 4, or that can, start later on in people's 40s, 50s, 60s, or whatever age they might be at. Because also once they get to the point where they're interested in relationships and sexuality, filled with emotions and hormonal changes that may be going on. And so it's important to have those conversations not when you're in the heat of the moment or when they're really interested in things, but perhaps previous. But like Nicole said, we do feel like it should be an ongoing conversation. So we try to start those conversations through these trainings, through our groups, and then hope that people will continue them. So I talked a little bit about where to start the discussion, but also privacy can be a huge other aspect of relationship and sexuality issues. Sometimes we Ian finds that, it's a lot easier for somebody with a disability to get dressed in the living room because there's 10 million things that have to happen, and that's right in the middle of where everybody is, and so that's where they get changed. Maybe like for a 2 or 3-year-old, that's okay, but maybe as they become teenagers and a little bit older, maybe that's, not that it's not okay, but maybe it's just, we'll do this in the bathroom. Just, again, kind of setting those boundaries and so that they're really concrete. So, this is where I get changed in my bedroom or in the bathroom. Also kind of setting that stage, trying to kind of prevent abuse and not thinking like, I can just take off my clothes anywhere. Not that that's what is happening, just making sure that we're setting those. We also really work hard with the people in our groups and the people that we support on, when to say no and how to say no, what are different kinds of touch. That's something that we'll talk a little bit more about later.
Okay, to use during these discussions. So we're identifying a place to get clear and consistent information for the individuals, whether that be a family member or somebody you work with or otherwise. So by starting the conversation, you're providing a safe place for the individuals to come, a place with no judgment so they can always ask a question without feeling judged, which is very important, so they don't feel like any of their questions are silly. And then we could also give them an opportunity to practice skills, whether that be practicing social skills, practice decision-making. We use a lot of role-playing in the groups that we do for individuals to practice that skill so they could use it in their everyday life. And also, important that the conversation is continuous. So they're going to be coming to with questions, ideas, and things about this topic over time, and it will probably change as they develop and as they get older and their interests change. So the topics that we typically cover are listed here: relationships, identification of and expressions of feelings, enhancing self-esteem and social skills, personal boundary and body rights, parts and changes, sexual development and education, touching what's appropriate and inappropriate, and personal safety skills around relationships. We're going to go further into this list and kind of go over in a little bit of detail how we cover each of the topics.
So personal boundaries and body rights. I mentioned a little bit before about say no. And so we do that in a whole bunch of different ways, and it kind of goes back to that decision making. When is it okay to say no? For a lot of the people that we support, they're kind of expecting that to be kind of, this is what we do, and this is the schedule for the day, and you need to do this. But what are times that they can say no? So kind of practicing saying no. Can you say, no, I'm going to brush my teeth in 5 minutes, or no, I'm going to have 2 serves of broccoli instead of 1, whatever the case may be. So again, kind of practicing decision times that it's okay to say no so that people have practice. We often have people put both of their hands and yell, or, practice. Every group is a little bit different. And then we want to make sure that everybody kind of knows their rights, what personal space is, kind of who can touch them on their body where, and as well as kind of changes as you age. And so what does that look like? And so making sure that they're the best advocates as possible. All right, private. This is something that we spend a lot of time differentiating with people, and it's kind of going back to the getting changed in the bathroom or in the bedroom, and identifying locations throughout the community that are public and some that are private. Also would hate for our, some of our older adults we've seen, get in trouble at times because they're doing something inappropriate, but they don't realize that it's inappropriate, and so then, the police get involved. So it's just making sure that they know, this is how I'm feeling, I should go to Stop and Shop. And we've, used a lot of visuals for this, for different levels of abilities. So it can be pictures of movie theaters and bathrooms and parks and all different places. So identifying those 2 different places, as well as public and private body parts. And so using proper language in case they did need to report any kind of abuse, that they would be able to do so using the proper language, that everybody is kind of on the same page with what different body parts are. Again, we do this through kind of brainstorming exercises. There's you could even suggest to family, sometimes something comes up on TV and it's worth a conversation, and sometimes we have just pictures of people, and people color in what the public and private parts of people are. Next is relationships. Relationships. We try to go at all of these topics kind of in a roundabout way in some aspects, but like Nicole said, we like sexual education is more than a conversation and is ongoing. And so what are the relationships that they have in their lives? Do they have family members? Do they have cousins? Do they have friends? Do they have coworkers? Do they have clients? Do they have staff? And kind of what are the boundaries with those different kinds of people? We'll try to kind of break down what the difference is between friendship and dating, just because, again, sometimes people can get misinformation. They're getting information from TV or from music or from somebody else who doesn't know. They might just not realize the difference. We want to make sure that that's clear and that they get the accurate information. And what are the options in relationships? Can you go out with a group of people? Do you go out with just one person? Kind of what are the different options and what feels comfortable for them, kind of based on who they are, what their family beliefs are. It's differ for everybody, because obviously people of different ability levels kind of absorb information at different paces, like Nicole had mentioned before.
Expressions of feelings. We do a lot of checking in with group members when we run our groups about their feeling, and kind of having a think about how their week's going. But then also feelings around certain circumstances that may come up. We do talk intimacy. We talk about what is it, when is it okay, and where, and with who. And we spend a lot of time on that topic throughout the other topics. And then how do feelings translate into actions? And we talk about this a lot throughout the topics as well. When are having strong feelings for someone, what do you do with those feelings? And how do you show them? How do you show them appropriately? And how do you and what are ways that are actually inappropriate? For example, are you calling the person that you have a crush on 15 times a day, they're not answering, and kind of talking about why that's not okay and what are okay ways to show that you have some feelings for somebody. And then if those feelings aren't positive feelings, what they're bad feelings, maybe somebody got rejected by somebody, what do you do with those feelings in an appropriate way? So again, we talk about this throughout all the other topics as well. Esteem and social skills, very important part of what we talk about throughout the group as well. We talk about peer pressure and ways to not succumb to it. We talk a lot about qualities of friends. This is a big part of our curriculum that we use throughout the group, and we use the terms red flags and green flags. Red flags being, the bad quality. Red flags being the bad qualities of a person that you would not want in a friend, and green flags are the positive qualities that you would want in a friend or in a boyfriend or girlfriend or other relationships. And those are terms that we use through the group, and they're more concrete, and it shows that helps the individuals kind of carry that information along with them even after the group is over. Also work on confidence building. Compliment circles a lot of the time in our groups, where individual participants are getting to know each other. They give each other compliments at the end of each group, whether that be about, what the person is wearing, and then as time goes on, hopefully it's more about the other group members' personalities, so that's confidence building. And also, the more info the individual has, the more confidence they will have. And the more confidence, the more resisting peer pressure will be easier. It will also help them make good choices. So really, we put that message throughout our groups as well.
That's appropriate. This is something, like many of the topics, we kind of we turn one group and then kind of come back, so that, again, everything is kind of an ongoing conversation, so that people are getting the information kind of in different ways depending on what their learning style is, and if they just didn't tune in the last time we talked about it, that they get it. So this is a really important one. So we talk about types of touch. We talk about always okay touch, something like a fist pump or a high five, sometimes okay touch, maybe putting your on somebody's shoulder, maybe a hug, and then never okay touch. And that looks like in terms of touch that's not wanted. And then we talk about the kind of feelings that you have with each kind of touch. So maybe for always okay touch, it always makes you feel good, and it never has to be a secret. With sometimes okay touch, one person's comfortable and the other person isn't. How does that make them feel? And just trying to really work hard at doing a variety of different games and exercises so that people feel like they, it's easy for some that they can take somebody else's perspective or see what that might look like. And also for the never fair touch, something that has to be a secret. That should never have to be a secret. That if somebody says, if we do this, you can't ever tell anybody, that's never okay. That you might make that decision, but if somebody's threatening you, that's never okay. And go through the different ways in which people in situations like that or leave situations like that. Like Nicole mentioned before, sometimes that's through role plays or situations that have actually come for people. Maybe they kissed their boyfriend and they were super excited, and they were both in agreement, so that was okay. But, maybe somebody else saw somebody coming in for a hug and they didn't feel okay. So getting different people's perspectives. Talk about kind of public and private as it relates to things like masturbation and where it can happen and how it can happen, and it really depends on the group and when people are ready for that information. It's not something that we would just kind of talk if people weren't ready to have that conversation. But a lot of people have some information. We just want to make sure they have the concrete facts. And then permission, kind of going back to what we had talked about, public and private. Who has permission to touch your body and when? At any time you can say, yes, doctor, you can touch me. If you don't feel like the doctor should be touching you, maybe you can say, not right now, and maybe they need just a different understanding. But again, so that that understands that they're the only ones who kind of have the right to give permission about their bodies.
Personality skills. Again, this is a topic throughout our groups. So we talk about the role of emotions on making decisions around sex. Emotions can get in the way of making good choices, about feeling pressured. If you are feeling pressured to have sex with somebody, what are your options? What can you do? Always saying that no is an option. Like Paula had said before, we practice that quite a bit, practicing saying no. And if you're feeling pressured or if someone made you do something you want to, who are the people that you trust and that you can go to tell somebody. So again, spend a lot of time talking about that. And depending on the group, kind of where they're at, we talk about what happens when drugs and alcohol are involved. Have an open discussion on how it can affect making decisions and making safe choices, whether it be the individual who may be using drugs or alcohol or the person that they're dating or thinking about having sex with, that can play a role in their relationship.
Discussions. In some of our groups, we really get into more detail about this, and we talk about the different forms of protection, about condoms, about IUDs, about pills, kind of birth control pills that not 100%. And then we also talk about sexually transmitted diseases, because we want to make sure that everybody is aware of having sex isn't just all of the good things, as well as all of the kind of the consequences of having sex and what can happen, and what to do about that. That it should be part of their decision, understanding all of these different factors and kind of putting them together. We know that not everybody is going to be able to absorb all the information at the same time, just making sure that they have the information. Because we've been doing this for a number of years, sometimes in various other, you might see somebody who we haven't had a group in 3 years, and they might bring up something weren't even sure that they understood, that they got, but processing it, and they at least had the information. So that to be helpful, just to get the information out there. And this we've used at times for decision making. Like we talked about at the very beginning, decision making is a little bit different for everybody. This is something that we borrowed from what's called Curriculum of Kings County in Washington. And it's kind of just making a list of what are the choices, what are the good things that can happen, what are the bad things that can happen. It's a week later, okay, what are your feelings about that? What is the other person going to and what beliefs do you and family have regarding that? And so for some people, that can just be a really concrete way to go through things. For other people, they need to make a decision much quicker, and so that wouldn't be easy for them. Or for other people, it's just that's too much to think about when they're making a decision. Just want to be able to process that information. It is a tool that we have used that some people feel is very beneficial.
Okay, benefit of having a conversation with your family member. So after going through all the topics that we cover generally in our groups, This gives the tools for the individuals to make decisions, hopefully on their own when they need to. It's a place for them to get accurate information, which is also very important. Again, there's a lot of information out there, especially now with like social media. There's a lot of different information that's could be inaccurate from a lot of different places. So, person or being the group or the person who can help with provide accurate information. So, with the knowledge that they gain from the groups, we're hoping it will help reduce the risk of abuse, and it provides them a safe place to ask questions, talk about something that may have happened to them, something that they are thinking about doing or want to do, kind of a place to kind of talk these things out before they make decisions. So like these are all benefits of this ongoing, again, it's an ongoing conversation with the family member or individual that you're working with. So this is a list of some of the books that we use for, getting information for our curriculum. There's also that we suggest other people use in having conversations. Other resources that we use. Events that Paula and I are having through June. Okay. So we talked a little bit quickly.
It's a lot of information, and we're kind of more used to interacting with folks, but we really welcome your questions.
Hi, this is Carrie again. Just if you have questions, I actually had a question. Nicole, what age group do these groups usually start at? And how do families know when to talking to their kids about these issues? Because because we have the double edge of, they may have a 14-year-old's body, however, they have maybe, the intellectual or developmental level of somebody who's 4 or 5. And then also, who was asked to repeat the statistics of abuse. I'm going to pass the ball back to you. And you can hope, and there's more questions after as well.
I've done the groups for middle school students here in Melrose. We've done them for high school students. We've done them for young adults, and we've done them for people in their 40s and 50s. It's kind of never too late to start the conversation, and I think a lot about, the 14-year-old that's in the 11-year-old's body and kind of what do you do with that information. And so a lot of times what we do is, just start with like the decision making. What decisions, starting with the public and private. So you're not necessarily having a conversation about what is sex, but you're having a conversation about relationships. Like, how is the man different than the family friends that comes over every day, and how are your interactions different, and kind of making that really clear, and kind of asking the people we support, what is the difference? Or you see, Bob delivers the mail every day at 3 o'clock, and Susie comes over sometimes on the weekends and spends time. Would you hug both of them? Would you kiss both of them? Would you trust both of them to get in a car? Not that either one of them is bad or good, but just kind of setting up those boundaries so that it's kind of a wider conversation about decisions and kind of your circle of support and circle of people. There's some great American Girl books that are listed. Those are great, and they're great for any age. We've used those with adults, and we've used those with kids just the same as well. And then the Sexuality one, which is the second one on the PowerPoint on the list that's right now, that one is written by family members for family members, and so we used that as we were developing our curriculum.
Okay, question about the statistics. I'll repeat that again. So it's approximately 80% of people with intellectual disabilities will be sexually abused at some point in life, and 90% of their first sexual experience is with a staff. And that is from the ADDP, Association of Developmental Disability Providers. Okay, there's another question around pulling out just for one-on-one instead of being part of the group.
Sometimes there are a need for those conversations to be one-on-one if there was a specific incident. I think we think of kind of the work that we do as trying to be pretty preventative, and we feel like relationships are so intertwined with other people that it's really beneficial to have it as part of a group, because it's always, I think, one of my favorite parts about doing the groups is it's interesting to see how the group members support each other and how much they know, and also how much more willing somebody might be to take that information from one of their peers or one of the people in the group versus an adult or someone else. You know, we could say the same thing, but if it comes from one of their peers, and also we can practice, we can role play. We're not role playing what we might have done when we were 14, it's what they have done right now in 2015 as a 14-year-old with a disability, or an 18-year-old, or a 25-year-old, or whatever the case may be.
Right. Okay, so the next question being, how does a youth become eligible for the group? So it really depends on where the group is. So right now we're running 2 groups here at Emarc in Wakefield, and that's simply just calling up and asking questions and us asking you questions, and then they're eligible for the group. If in our service area. Besides, we've done a number of different groups for other agencies, and usually the agencies that we've done them for in the past will recommend people for the group, and you know, their own advertisement for those. I don't know if this is the question. It's not really a formal kind of referral. So whoever you think may need the group, and we could discuss it and see if it sounds like that individual would be right fit for the group that we're running at the time. Excuse me. We don't have a group right now running in the Haverhill, Newburyport area. That doesn't mean we won't in the future.
We a couple of years back, actually, with Carrie, but we haven't done them in quite some time. And it's, you know, school systems are interested. We're always willing to talk with them, or family support centers is where we've done a lot of them kind of throughout Northeast Massachusetts.
We've run groups in the Malden Public School System and the Melrose Public School System. It was kind of part of the school day, which was great. And then, like Paula said, we've done a number of the agencies in the area. The groups do cost money, depending on, right, so it depends on who's hosting the group, depends on the cost. So we couldn't give an accurate amount, because it's usually different.
Contact with folks, and then they will determine what the cost is that families or other providers would pay. Some curriculum available online, like I had mentioned in the decision-making one, that's available. It's called Flash from the state of Washington. We have taken some of our ideas from there, but just over the course of doing groups for the last 4 or 5 years, have kind of developed our own curriculum. Has paid for the groups? I just saw another question come up in terms of allocating money to a family resource center, and then the family resource center will work with us. Or a DDS provider just for the groups as well, so they will pay for them based on kind of the current budget and whatever that family resource center happens to be doing.
Are there other questions at this time? Okay. So next question that just came up. Do all individuals, regardless of their disability, have a need for sex? Is masturbation the best approach for someone with significant delays? On the individual, I have to say. It's hard to generalize it, I think.
Exactly. I think it's hard if you think about kind of the general population. You know, probably people have varying need for sex throughout the population, with disabilities or without. And so I think, like Nicole said, it really does depend on that person. You know, and it's interesting too what we found, what people think our relationship is or dating somebody is. It could be as simple as that they see them at work or they see them at school. It doesn't necessarily mean just because they want to date somebody that they want to have sex. I think there's a lot in the middle, and sometimes that gets lost, or they just don't understand, or they're watching a TV show and it's like, oh, these people meet, and then they go behind a closed door.
Right.
And, you know, and what does that mean for the people that we support? They may not necessarily be able to put all that together. And so, you know, masturbation is a successful approach for people of all abilities. We've definitely worked with a lot of folks with significant delays where with their families and other professionals about kind of, again, where does the masturbation happen, kind of how does it work for them, just because based on somebody's disability and kind of their motor planning and all those different pieces that can be a factor.
And the approach the masturbation topic in the groups depends on the group participants. We've had people who ask directly about it. We've people bring it up and talk about it and not really know what it was. At times we get into exactly what it is, and then, you know, and then other times we just talk about questions that they have about it. Is it okay? When is it okay? Where is it okay? Like Paula had just said. It is an important part of this discussion.
And we've heard other families that sometimes people just start to participate in masturbation, and maybe they don't know what they're doing. And so it'd be really helpful for families to kind of label it and kind of explain it, kind of when it is happening. And that's been another technique that we have learned from families that can be really helpful. The next question.
The next question is, someone who cannot communicate, relationships must be facilitated to build a relationship further. So asking the person facilitating the relationship, should they be building further? Am I understanding that correctly? Okay, thank you. I think it must be facilitated, right? Individuals will definitely have, you can't communicate a big part in where that relationship goes in a way, but they would need the help, maybe suggestions on how to kind of make it go further. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think, we're always surprised by folks who we feel like verbally communicating or communicating otherwise is not a skill that they possess. They've been in some of our groups in both the local school systems as well as our other groups. And when we do things with visuals, and we've talked about it, we've talked about public and private, and then we give them the picture of the movie theater and ask them, even if they have some mobility challenges, to come up and put in the right column. I mean, I understand they have a 50-50 chance, but almost always get it right. And I think that we're really surprised, we even do an exercise with, like, 5 different kinds of relationships and, putting the picture where it goes. Again, there could be, some room for flexibility there, but it's also interesting how much people understand. And I think, like all people, some people you like and some people you don't. So I don't know if that answers that question.
Okay, moving on to the next question. How would you support folks with developmental disabilities in addressing and having conversations with parents or caregivers who are not currently supportive of this person's attempts to get involved in certain kinds of relationships, such as dating? And we've definitely come across this.
Right? Over and over and over again. And so it's kind of those questions that we had talked about in the beginning and kind of dispelling some myths. Like, what is it that people are afraid of? What is it that they're concerned about? And then, like, what is it that the person with a disability is seeking? If they're seeking to be in a relationship, so they have somebody to call and talk to on the phone and see who gets really excited to see them, then we would want that for any person. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have sex, which I think is sometimes a big concern or a worry is, oh, my goodness, they're going to have sex, they're going to get pregnant, and I'm going to have to care for that kid. And that's like taking it 12 or 15 steps down the road. Not that couldn't happen, but sometimes that's not even what the person is seeking, and just making sure that they have that support.
And so encourage, again, open conversations, even if we can help role play those conversations. If a group member of ours wants to have that with a parent or a caregiver, and so that they can feel confident in having the conversation and expressing their wants and their needs. We can't see that it will go the way that they want, but at least they could have an open conversation about it. Okay, so what are some topics the group members have asked that surprised you? That's a good one as well.
I think they surprise us.
Sometimes they surprise us with how much they know. Sometimes they surprise us with topics they want to know more about.
Pregnancy is a big one that's come up. Even sometimes, like, I can't have kids, or I'm not going to have kids because I couldn't take care of them, and how they process all of that information can really be interesting. Some different questions about different body parts and how they work that has come up, and that's been relatively interesting as well. I think one of the things, because everybody's individual and everybody processes information differently, every group's a little different, which we really enjoy.
Okay, just talk about the pilot with women and mammograms. What is happening? Paula, maybe you could speak to it.
We do have a pilot program running, and I believe it's both through our Family Resource Center as well as Supported Living.
Yes.
There are some people who are doing a research project and who are coming in and educating the people that we support about mammograms and why they're important, and kind of going through the process of what is going to happen and how it's going to happen, so that they have an understanding before they go in, and so that it's not something that causes them concern or anxiety or anything like that, and kind of just part of that general health piece.
Okay. How do you relay what goes on in your sessions with caregivers, parents, or guardians of the person with the disabilities? So we take confidentiality very seriously in our groups. So we talk about that and always in the first group, that what we talk about in the group stays in the group, of course, unless somebody is hurting you, you're going to hurt yourself or somebody else. So in that sense, we keep private what we talk about in detail. What we do is at the end of every group, we send home a general list of the topics that we talked about, how we talked about them, whether it be we brainstormed, we role-played, we played games, we used visuals. So that's really how we handled that subject.
We just make sure, because it is an ongoing conversation, like Nicole said, that parents, givers, staff know what's going on. So, we talked about what is a date, when do you go on a date, how do you go on a date. That might be the information that's sent home.
The next, do you discuss marriage and long-term relationships with your group participants? Does the topic of having children in a marriage get discussed? Yes, it does. Marriage is one of the types of relationships that we talk about. We talk about what a marriage is, what it could look like. We use visuals around that. And the topic of having children also comes up a lot of the times, like we just discussed, from the group participants themselves. Seem to be very interested. So if the members bring a topic up, then we're going to discuss that. It's their group, and we meet them where they're at and go from there.
Our group who have been in long-term relationships, again, kind of what that can look different. I think we had a situation where maybe the girl was kind of just happy with the way things were going, and the boy was like, we've been together for like 4 or 5 years, like what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And so just kind of, it has to be mutually agreed upon, and so how do you kind of coach them through that? Or I feel like sometimes what comes up is somebody thinks they're dating and the other person doesn't know. And so I know that's the opposite of marriage and long-term relationships, but as it fits the people that we support in each individual group, we discuss it.
Okay, what is the most common topic raised by your group participants? Any? Dating is a big one. Dating, kissing.
First, I want to talk about sex, and then we actually talk about it. I don't want to have anything to talk about anything to do with it.
Those are the big ones. Dating, sex.
Kind of like, from the very beginning, like ask somebody out on a date. Who do you ask on a date? We'll ask them out on a date, and we kind of go through each of those different topics.
Anybody any further questions? Came and work with adults who have different boyfriend, girlfriend every day and get engaged with anyone who asks. Do you have ideas, activities to help them understand why they should not fall in love with anyone who asks them out? Very typical.
We get this one.
A conversation where we started is, what is a relationship? What is a boyfriend? What is a girlfriend? What boyfriends and girlfriends do? And kind of, basically there, does that mean if you went out with somebody that you're going to get married? And we work on all those different scenarios. In terms of not getting engaged to anyone who asks, we haven't been to people getting engaged too much because we sometimes work with younger children, individuals. Not like that.
Two, it's also like, fall in love with them actually mean? You
right.
know, or like, what does romance mean? And just because you say you love somebody, like, what does that mean? And how, you know, kind of breaking it down for them. Well, you know, like, you could love ice cream, but is that the same as loving your boyfriend? And kind of almost separating it out so it's that opposite. You know, like, it tastes really good, it's fun to have, you know, like, and making sure that they're kind of making the differences between love something and falling in love with somebody, and that you don't, you know, you can't have spoken to somebody and then within an hour fall in love with them and being engaged. That, you know, just talking about all the different kind of steps in dating. And also talk a lot, Nicole mentioned this during our presentation about flags and green flags. What qualities that you want in somebody? How are you going to know? You can't know in the first hour that you meet somebody, or even in the first week, you know, all of the green flags, all the things that you're going to love about them. The same thing about the red flags. You know, maybe that there's some behaviors that you just really can't tolerate or you don't like, or like Nicole had said, they call you 30 times in an hour. And so really kind of asking them, okay, well, why? What are the green flags? Why? What are the reasons? And just kind of putting it back on them in a sense.
Next question is, how do you approach LGBT issues? How many people are presumed heterosexual? Many people are presumed heterosexual and don't know the other identities are possibility. Also, do you have any discussions on gender identity? We approach, I think, starting with dating, you know, men can date men, women can date men. We've had participants openly talk about someone of the same gender, and we approach that the same that we would approach anybody dating someone of the opposite gender. Gender identity hasn't come up specifically as of yet. It may, and hopefully we can approach it appropriately.
The group kind of and understanding of LGBT issues is very different.
Yes, right.
And so, again, we kind of talk about if they are familiar with, and if, you know, one person brings it up and another person is not sure, then we have the person who brought it up, if they're able to, tell their peer what it is. If not, we want to make sure, again, that they have that accurate, concrete information. How many weeks do your average groups go? Typically about 10 weeks, anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. It varies kind of based on the calendar and holidays, and the goals are in general for the groups.
We've done day-long groups for other agencies that are typically like 5 hours long. It's a short version of what we do in 10 weeks. We try to go into topics of the group in that time.
In technical questions and being able to print and things like that, we pass it back to Carrie in a couple of minutes. Hopefully we can answer some of those questions. I think we have the understanding of the technology to help you out. We apologize.
Okay. Last questions? Thank you so much for joining us for the presentation. Contact information is on the page, so if you have any further questions, you know, feel free to email us. We'd be happy to help.
Seems like we lost the PowerPoint.
Carrie again. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending tonight, and thank you, Paula and Nicole, for a really great presentation. I know it's a tough topic to tell on what the words and how to give good information, but the statistics you remarked about were really alarming to me. Anyway, and thank you all participants for coming tonight and listening to this webinar, and thanks, Marissa, for your tech expertise. Our next webinar, I'm not sure if any of you tried to do the Janet George one last week. It was a nightmare. We couldn't get the audio working, but we've resolved these problems, we think, and reviewing the webinar on May 14th. We also have we're coming up on the end of May on autism and health issues. So, and thank you, and everybody have a terrific night.